When you think about moving a physical brick and mortar store, the whole process is, well, it's incredibly tangible.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right. Like you literally pack your inventory into cardboard boxes, load them onto a truck, and you physically scrape your logo off the front window of the old place.
And then you go unlock the door to the new one.
Exactly. It is exhausting, but it's visible. You can see exactly what is moving. But when you step into the world of e-commerce and you decide to move your digital storefront from one platform to another, that visibility just completely vanishes.
It really does. You aren't moving boxes anymore.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
It is much more like trying to translate a highly complex technical book into a completely different language.
Yeah.
Some concepts translate perfectly, but others simply don't have a direct equivalent,
Right, and you find yourself having to rewrite entire chapters from scratch just to make the new version actually make sense.
Exactly.
And if you don't know exactly which chapters need rewriting or which words don't translate, you could accidentally erase years of hard work.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah, you might think you're just swapping out the plumbing, but you end up flooding the entire house.
Which is an absolute nightmare when your livelihood is on the line. So if you are staring down a massive store migration from Squarespace to Shopify, or even if you are just fascinated by the invisible mechanics that hold the internet together, we have a mission today for this deep dive.
We really do.
We are going to cut right through the tech jargon and map the terrain of moving a digital storefront without burning it to the ground.
Sure.
Okay, let's unpack this because we aren't here to declare a winner between Squarespace and Shopify.
No, absolutely not.
This isn't a team sport.
It's not. Moving platforms is fundamentally a fit decision. It is never a rescue mission.
Right.
You own your business on both platforms, but they model commerce in entirely different ways at a structural database level. So before we can even talk about the logistics of moving the data, we have to look at the specific trade-offs you are making when you decide to switch.
We have to understand the philosophy behind the code, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Squarespace is, at its heart, a website builder. It started with beautiful content and design, and then eventually added commerce capabilities on top of that.
Exactly, and Shopify comes from the exact opposite direction. It is a commerce and checkout platform built from the ground up that eventually added content capabilities later.
And that distinction, it changes how their databases actually function, right?
It really does. It creates some very hard limits depending on which direction you are growing. Squarespace, for instance, caps your product catalog at 10,000 items.
Okay.
And within those products, it gives you up to 6 different option types.
So options meaning like size, color, material, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Categories of customization. But, and this is key, it restricts you to only 250 total combinations or variants per product.
So wait, if I offer a shirt in 6 different broad categories, but I multiply all the sizes by all the colors, by all the patterns, I just hit a hard ceiling at 250 unique versions of that one shirt.
Yes, you hit a wall. Now contrast that with Shopify. Shopify has no low catalog cap. You can theoretically scale your inventory infinitely.
Wow.
And it allows a massive 2,048 variants per product.
There is a huge jump.
It is, but, and this is a structural shock for a lot of people, it restricts you natively to just 3 options per product.
Wait, just 3?
Yeah, unless you install a third-party app or pay a developer to write custom code, you only get 3 categories to customize.
Wait, I need to push back on this. Because I like to think of this move like, leaving a fully furnished, beautifully decorated apartment where you can't knock down walls and moving into an empty, massive warehouse.
I like that analogy.
Right, you have to build your own furniture in a warehouse, but you can expand infinitely.
Yeah.
But if Shopify is supposedly this ultimate commerce warehouse, why does it limit you to fewer product options, just 3, than Squarespace, which gives you 6?
It sounds backwards, right?
Yeah, why would a growing business trade down on their options?
What's fascinating here is that Shopify's limitation is entirely intentional, and it perfectly illustrates their commerce-first philosophy.
How so?
Well, Shopify keeps its core code incredibly lightweight. The primary goal is to ensure checkouts are lightning fast, because speed equals conversions.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, they know that the vast majority of merchants only really need 3 options, usually just size, color, and maybe style.
Right, the basics.
Exactly. For the outliers who need more complex customization, Shopify deliberately relies on its massive App Store ecosystem to fill those gaps. They built an ecosystem, not a walled garden.
So you have to literally bring your own tools if you want to build more shelves in the warehouse.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But it also introduces the financial tipping point of this whole fit decision, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Because Shopify relies on third parties, and it also enforces its own payment gateway.
Oh, the payment gateways, yes.
If you take payments through any gateway other than Shopify payments, they add a third-party transaction fee. I think it ranges from 2% on their basic plans down to 0.2% on their highest tiers.
Which can add up fast. Whereas Squarespace offers 0% transaction fees on their core commerce plans and higher, assuming you are selling physical products.
So this migration only actually makes sense and is only worth the immense effort of, translating that complex book we talked about when a genuine limit on Squarespace starts costing you real money.
Precisely.
Like if you need complex B2B scaling, meaning you are doing business-to-business wholesale with custom pricing tiers, or you need specialized apps, or those catalog caps are stifling your growth, then you move.
Yeah, if you run a content-heavy site with just a few merch items, you might honestly just be moving out of boredom.
And moving out of boredom is the fastest way to lose money.
It really is.
But let's assume you've hit that ceiling. The shelf space is gone. You need the warehouse. The immediate question is how you actually get the data from point A to point B.
Right, the actual logistics.
Which brings us to the myth of the magic button.
Yeah.
Because when you look at how interconnected the internet is today, you naturally assume there is just a one-click import from Squarespace button sitting right there in the Shopify dashboard.
I wish. Shopify does have an official store migration app, and it supports a long list of platforms. You can pull data directly from Square, WooCommerce, Etsy, Wix, Amazon, eBay.
Let me guess. Squarespace is nowhere on that list.
It is entirely absent. There is no magic native importer for this specific platform pairing.
Of course not.
The foundation of this entire move is a manual CSV transfer. You're dealing with spreadsheets. You basically export a CSV file from Squarespace. You manually edit the columns to match Shopify's database formatting, and then you import it.
Let's define that quickly for anyone who isn't living in database land.
Yeah.
A CSV is just a comma-separated values file.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a raw, unformatted spreadsheet. It strips away all the fonts, the colors, the pretty layout, and just leaves the pure, raw data. So what exactly makes it onto these raw spreadsheets?
It is a surprisingly restricted list, actually. You can export up to 10,000 physical and service products via CSV.
Okay, that's not bad.
But your digital products, like downloadable PDFs or audio files, do not export in that file. Squarespace actually puts digital products on a 30-day pause after you cancel your store, and you have to plan their move completely manually.
Oh, wow, that's a huge catch. What about the humans, like the people who actually buy the products?
Customers, email subscribers, and donors all move in a single context CSV, but this is just their name, email, and address.
That's the basics.
Right. If you had account tiers or a gated member area where they needed passwords to access exclusive content, none of that transfers. Passwords are encrypted for security reasons, so the platforms literally cannot read them to export them.
Meaning every single one of your returning customers will have to set up a brand new account and create a new password on the new site.
Yes, every single one.
That is a massive friction point to plan for. And what about their purchase history?
Those move in a separate order CSV, but they arrive on Shopify strictly as historical references. You can't actively fulfill an old Squarespace order from the Shopify dashboard.
Got it. And the actual web pages.
Your content, your pages, and your blog posts moves over as an XML file. Similar to a CSV, an XML file is just a raw text document stripped of all its formatting. When it arrives in Shopify, it brings the words, but you will need to do some serious layout cleanup to make it look like a web page again.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Looking at the breakdown of what actually moves, gift cards are a massive hidden trap.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they export via CSV, which sounds great on the surface.
Mhm.
But a gift card isn't just a product. It represents real money that you owe to a customer. It is a financial liability sitting on your books.
And when you import that specific spreadsheet into Shopify, you have to manually reconcile the codes and the remaining balances to make sure every single penny is accounted for.
Right, because if that spreadsheet gets formatted incorrectly during the move, you are either accidentally erasing a customer's real money, which is a customer service nightmare,
total nightmare.
or you are accidentally creating fake money out of thin air that you are now legally obligated to honor. It's a stark reminder that we aren't just moving digital files. We are moving a living, breathing, business ledger.
Exactly. And so if the CSVs and XML files handle the text, the ledger, and the numbers, we have to address what happens to the visual and social proof, the elements that actually convince a customer to pull out their credit card.
Because none of that fits neatly into a spreadsheet.
No, it doesn't. The visual side of this migration is where the manual labor truly begins. First and foremost, there is no bulk image export in Squarespace.
Wait, I want to pause on that because the logistics are staggering. If I have a catalog of 1,000 products and each product has 3 photos.
If you do this on the manual DIY path, you are downloading 3,000 images one by one.
Are you kidding?
Nope. You have to open the Squarespace asset library and manually download every single file to your hard drive.
That is soul-crushing. Why can't I just bypass that entirely? Like, if I keep my Squarespace site live on a cheap, basic plan, can't I just point my new Shopify store to those old Squarespace image links? Let Squarespace continue to host the photos while Shopify runs the checkout.
This raises an important question about how domain hosting actually works. And it is the single most critical warning to heed during a migration. The moment you eventually cancel your Squarespace subscription, your site goes offline. Because Squarespace was hosting those physical image files on their servers, those specific image URLs go dark immediately.
Even if I own the domain name.
You might own the domain name, but you never owned the server space hosting those images. So if you link to them and then cancel Squarespace, every single image on your new Shopify store will break in an instant.
Oh, wow.
You will be left with a store full of broken image icons. Backing up all images locally before you ever touch the cancel button is an absolute requirement.
It is genuinely scary how one wrong sequence of clicks could leave your entire store completely blank.
Yeah, and this specific nightmare is why merchants pay for third-party migration tools. Tools like Lit Extension, which generally starts around $79, or Migration Pro actually handle rehosting the images to Shopify automatically.
Oh, that is easily worth $79.
Absolutely. They scrape the old site and pull the images over.
Yeah.
For any catalog larger than a handful of products, using a tool just to save your sanity on the images alone is usually worth the investment.
Okay, so the images require a tool or a lot of caffeine. What about social proof? Because reviews are the lifeblood of e-commerce trust.
Well, product reviews never transfer natively.
No.
Never. You cannot export them from Squarespace. And since Shopify has no native reviews feature built into its core platform, you have to rebuild them entirely using a Shopify app like Judge.me or Utpo after you launch.
Man, that's brutal. And I imagine the design itself is in the same boat.
Pretty much. Squarespace uses a system called blocks. Shopify uses a system called sections. The underlying code languages, how they actually talk to the browser, are entirely different.
Right.
Your storefront has to be built completely fresh from a Shopify theme. You are leaving the fully furnished apartment and building all new furniture for the warehouse.
Which introduces a huge invisible layer to this process. If the design doesn't carry over and those old image URLs eventually break, what happens to the links that already exist out in the wild?
Right, that's the big question.
Like what happens when a customer clicks a link they bookmarked 3 months ago for their holiday shopping list? Or more importantly, what happens when Google tries to crawl a link it indexed last year?
If you do nothing, they hit a 404 dead end. The page no longer exists.
Because almost none of your old URLs will survive this move unchanged, right? The platforms just structure their web addresses differently. Squarespace 7.1 forces a /p/ into all of its product URLs.
Yeah.
So it looks like your store.com/p/product name.
Right.
But Shopify uses fixed, rigid paths. It forces /products/handle. And the same structural differences apply to blog posts and standard pages too.
Exactly. And the solution to this is the SEO safety net, which is the 301 redirect map.
I look at a 301 redirect map like leaving a highly detailed forwarding address at the post office for every single piece of mail you might ever receive.
That's a great way to think about it.
Right. If someone sends a letter to the old /p/address, the internet's post office automatically crosses it out, routes it seamlessly, and delivers it to the new /product/address on Shopify. The customer doesn't even notice the detour. Think about how much time, effort, and money you have poured into getting your store to rank on the first page of Google. This redirect map is the insurance policy for all of that effort.
Building a map of hundreds or thousands of URLs sounds intimidating, but Shopify actually makes it quite robust. They allow up to 100,000 URL redirects on their standard plans.
Wow, that's plenty.
Yeah, and you don't do them one by one. You import them in bulk via, you guessed it, another CSV spreadsheet.
Ah, another spreadsheet. So you just map the old path in column A to the new path in column B.
Basically, yeah. The only trip is avoiding Shopify's reserved paths. You cannot redirect URLs that begin with /apps, /cart, /orders, or /services because Shopify's internal checkout and routing systems need those specific paths to function.
Okay, but as long as you map everything else, your Google ranking should survive the move.
Generally, yes. Google's actual advice on this is very pragmatic. They state that temporary fluctuations in search visibility are completely normal during a major site move. The search engine just needs time to crawl the new forwarding addresses. The rankings will settle down over time.
That's reassuring.
Yeah. Migrations that permanently lose their traffic almost always skipped building this redirect map entirely, or they left old image URLs stranded on a domain they no longer controlled.
Trust the map, not luck. So the data is moved via CSV or an app, the images are downloaded and rehosted, the design is rebuilt on a new Shopify theme, the forwarding addresses are painstakingly mapped out. We are finally reaching the climax of the project, which is taking the new store live without losing a single sale in the process.
This is the cutover playbook.
And the timeline for this is fascinating because you don't just shut down Squarespace on a Friday, spend the weekend building Shopify, and hope you are ready to open the doors on Monday.
No. Doing that would be revenue suicide. You have to build them in parallel.
Right. You keep the Squarespace store completely live. It is actively taking orders, processing credit cards, and serving customers while you are working in the background on Shopify. But here is the massive catch. If you did your main data import of all your products and customers on Monday, and you don't actually launch Shopify until Friday, what happens to the customers who bought things on Wednesday?
Well, they aren't in the new Shopify database. The new warehouse doesn't know they exist.
So what does this all mean for the launch sequence? It introduces the genius concept of the Delta export.
Exactly. The Delta export is the critical bridge between the two stores. Right before you are ready to flip the switch and take Shopify live, you freeze the Squarespace catalog. You stop making any changes to inventory or design.
You just lock it down.
Yep. Then you run one final small export of just the orders and the customer profiles that came in during that specific gap between Monday and Friday.
You import that delta, that tiny slice of missing time into Shopify, and now your new database is perfectly up to the second. It's like sweeping the floor of the old store one last time right before you lock the door for good.
I love that. And once that Delta data is imported, you update your DNS records.
Which is the domain name system. It's the internet's phone book.
Yeah.
You're telling the global network that your custom web address should no longer point to the Squarespace servers, but should instead route traffic to the Shopify servers. How long does that actually take?
Well, this is where you need absolute nerves of steel. Because DNS propagation is not instant, it usually happens within 2 hours, but it can take up to 48 hours to fully spread across every server on the global internet.
Wow, 2 full days, potentially.
Yeah, and during that waiting period, a customer in New York might see the old Squarespace site, while a customer in London might see the new Shopify site.
So you just have to monitor everything. You run test orders, you check for broken links, you ensure the taxes are calculating properly on the new side, and then finally, you hit the button to cancel Squarespace.
Only after Shopify is verified working end-to-end. Canceling takes the Squarespace site offline immediately and stops search engines from crawling it.
No going back.
Well, technically, a canceled Squarespace site can be reactivated if you realize you missed a crucial page because permanent deletion is a separate step that happens later. But you want to avoid that panic entirely. Verify everything is functioning, verify the redirects work, then cancel.
What a monumental journey. To bring this all together for you, moving a digital storefront is a fit decision, not a one-click magic trick. You are trading up to a larger, infinitely scalable ecosystem, but you are leaving behind native features like built-in reviews and an abundance of product options.
Exactly.
The whole process is built on raw CSV spreadsheets, 301 redirect maps, and careful parallel timing. Whether you do this yourself for a small catalog, use an automation tool to save your sanity on the image downloads, or hire a specialized agency. Remember this above all else. The redirect map is the absolute cheapest step to build, and it is the most expensive step to skip.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there's something we explored today that I think is profoundly interesting.
Oh, what's that?
Product reviews, which are arguably the ultimate currency of customer trust and social proof, are completely locked into the platform ecosystem. They cannot be easily exported or transferred.
You literally have to rebuild that trust from scratch.
It begs a bigger question for you to ponder. In an era where we emphasize digital ownership, data portability, and controlling our own destinies online, who truly owns the reputation of your business if a fundamental piece of your social proof can be erased simply by changing software providers?
That is a staggering thought. It really makes you rethink what you actually own when you rent space on the internet. Keep asking those great questions and keep exploring the hidden mechanics of the tools you use every day. And remember, when you decide to move your digital storefront, you aren't just moving boxes in a truck, you are translating the entire history of your business into a new language. Make sure you leave your customers a forwarding address.